Y'all okay with that? It's too bright in here. So. This is kind of weird. This desk moved all the way back. Y'all do that or they do that?
Someone here did it.
They did that. Back of the room, can hear me all right? Good? All right, great. Sorry, it took me a second to download files. The internet around here sucks, so you haven't figured that out yet. You're not trying. It's not great for some reason. They can't figure that one out. I'm Mr. Wright. I don't know what you've heard about me. I mean, it doesn't really bother me either way what you've heard about me because you get to make your own opinion. Either way, we're still going to be here, right? We're going to go through an introduction that I do every time. And it normally takes me a fair amount of time just to go through the introduction because I like to set up things, hopefully for success, to go through and say, well, you know, who am I? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on who I am. You'll figure that out. But expectations, up front, up clear, how we're going to do class, that kind of stuff. If there's one thing I try to drive across, and I don't continually say it all semester, but I like for the expectation to be clear. If you don't know what I'm trying to get you to, come and ask me, that kind of thing. Because it shouldn't be a secret. You know, I view it as my job is not here to see if you can pass. My job is to see if I can help you be a PA. Right? So everything I do in my mind when I'm setting up for class is about hopefully helping you be successful. Is that going to be challenging? Sure. But challenging is great for military folks, especially type A that get into PA school. If y'all don't know it, a lot of y'all are type A and you may not even know it yet. Higher achievers, you get here, you know, and welcome, I didn't say that, welcome. It's in my slides later. I try, especially when I'm the first class of your first day of real class, I like to say this after doom and gloom week, you are going to make it. I don't care what they said last week. You're going to make it, because even if you struggle, you're going to turn around and you're going to make it happen. So, quit worrying about that. Worry about what's the next day, the next test, that kind of thing. So here's like one slide of me. So I actually came through here in 2002. I started here in 2002. I finished PA school in 2004 out at MacDill Air Force Base for Phase 2. It's an awesome place. First place I ever learned that the Air Force has cushioned tracks, and the Army's been killing my knees running on the road. If you've ever been to MacDill, they got a real nice track on the beach. Anyway, I finished, I went out into the world, deployed, I worked as a PA, and my specialty is when I came through here, we didn't get the masters. We were like the last class at last or second class before we got the bachelor's. Then you had to go back to Nebraska when you got out after you're working as a PA, and you get your master's through them. And so I worked in spinal cord injury medicine and rehabilitation, so that's what my master's is in. It's nothing special, it just means I worked as a PA in spinal cord injury. I got to make up the name for my master's. That was kind of funny. Because it's a master's of physician assistant studies in whatever you happen to be working in at the time. Anyway. So that's what A&P stands for up there. If you want to get a hold of me, you can use that government email in blue there, but I don't always check it, just like y'all don't always check your government email on the weekends and things. I don't always either, but a lot of times when it comes up to we'll talk about testing and stuff later, I like you to be able to get a hold of me. So I have an email that I actually, believe it or not, I keep it at 0 unread emails. You know, that's impossible nowadays. But I'm constantly just deleting Merrill, trying to get me to buy more shoes, and all my girls' Christmas stuff that they laugh when I say it wrong. Shein, so I say she's in, Shine, whatever it is. I gotta go in there and stop those. But if you email me in the yellow here, I put Canvas because I'm on Canvas a lot, but I made up this Yahoo address, and that's where I have 0 unread. So if you email me within a short time, I'm going to see it. So I'd rather you use that one. Because when it's Sunday night before a test on Monday at midnight, there's a good chance I'm probably going to answer whatever question you have. And if you get a hold of me, you can skip the formalities. Mr. Wright, how you doing tonight? Unless you want to, but how you doing tonight? You know, I hope this doesn't bother you. I don't care. Just, hey, Mr. Wright, I don't understand what you wanted on this slide. You don't even have to sign your name to it. Just like you're texting, right? Just put it in there and I'll answer it back the same way. Mine are normally longer, they say. Because, it's harder on email than it is in person to get a point across. And if it's not the night before the test, come up the next day, we'll figure it out, right? But use that email address because I often see those, and then whoever the class leader is, who's class leader? If we can swap numbers at the break. I don't give everybody my cell phone number. Hopefully you can see why. There's what? I'm just estimating 63.
65.
Close. So, sometimes there's 80. So if I get 65 people emailing me or texting me all day long, right, it gets old. I got life too, believe it or not. So me and the class leader will swap numbers. If you're struggling, I'll give you my cell phone number. We can do that one-on-one if we need to. But otherwise, I'll have you email me, and then if I'm not answering it, she can text me and say, hey, answer your damn email. People are texting or emailing me. Getting text and email all mixed up. Okay, I already talked about the other part. I didn't put anything else on there. I got 5 kids. I don't foster currently. I used to. I like to come to work because it's a break. Actually, my kids are getting grown, or that's great English, right? Getting grown. My youngest is 16, so I got 16 and 18 and 20 and 22 and 27. So, lots of fun. Got 2 at A&M. Craziness. Crazy. Kids in college. I never went to formal college, like where you go and live there at the college. It's a nightmare. Okay. Welcome, challenging course. It's challenging because anatomy, let's just get this out up front as I always do. It's memorization. I teach A&P 1, which is all of the parts, where they're at, kind of what they do, cellular anatomy, genetics, all this stuff. It's challenging, but if you just had to take my course and sit in here all week long, you wouldn't think it was as challenging as it seems. But because you have so many courses going on at the same time, you gotta, figure out where you're gonna spend your time, what you're gonna study. I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I handle this course. But it makes it challenging, especially for those of you who can't memorize things very quickly. Now, it puts myself down to say, my course is a lot of memorization that you don't actually need me for. Me, I can help you understand what you're trying to memorize a little bit. But in A&P 1, it's not so much about, do I understand everything? Forgive me for saying this so early to you, it's a lot of regurgitation of slides, right? It's learning anatomy. You've taken anatomy. Everybody in here's taken anatomy. So I should make the assumption that everybody in here already knows everything I'm going to teach, right? No, right? Some people took it 10 years ago. I don't know what the rules are now. It used to be some could take it 10 years ago. Some of y'all did it amazingly while you were deployed on the line. Some of y'all got Navy this semester, Coast Guard, right? Join us this time. May have a very strong founding in anatomy. I was physical therapy before I came here, so I had a very strong anatomy background, but a lot don't. So I'm going to assume that we don't. I'm going to teach you just like this is the first time you've ever had anatomy. I'm not going to make that assumption that you know any of it, and because of that, you'll get a lot of repetition and a lot of going over things. That some of y'all who are better in anatomy already, that's perfect. That's great. That means you can focus more on your other courses. But some of y'all are not. And I'm not saying I'm just going to talk to them. I'm saying that that's how I view it in my mind. Is I need to explain this, even though 20 people in the room are going, this is nothing. We know this. We know, like cranial nerves. Some people in here probably already know your cranial nerves. Some are like, I don't even know what the hell you're saying. But you will. Okay, foundation. This is a foundation course. This is not a clinical course. I would love for it to be a clinical anatomy course, but because of the fact not everybody gets here as strong in anatomy as they need to be, it wouldn't do us a whole lot of good to just have a clinical anatomy right away, right? Maybe someday they will, it depends. And so foundational course like biochemistry, microbiology, all of these are courses to get you ready to go into the future semesters and on to clinicals, right? That's what they call a foundational course, a basic course, not a clinical science. And then mutual goal. So I don't like the attitude ever of me against you kind of stuff. I already said at the beginning, my goal is we all get through this, and we will. If you want to know the numbers, I think in the last 7 years, for those of you who got doom and gloom on me, say this course, and he's the one, I think I've had 3, maybe 4 people come to my class in 7 years. You know, but they feel it in their mind, so they tell you it's hard. There's people in this room, and people, you know, I talk negative. I gotta stop talking negative, because some people take it negative. Some people go, I left anatomy 1 with a 90 average, and to them that's a failure. I got daughters like that. They're like, you know, she made her first B as a senior in high school, and she lost her. She was crying. And I'm like, what'd you make? She said 88. I'm like, oh my goodness. Hey, we're working, because I wasn't that, so we built you up. We're taking that. I'm like, all I told her is, wait till college. Wait till college. You know? And now now I'm calling her all the time going, hey, we got to get those grades up, don't we? You got to, what's your goal here? You want to go to medical this and that? The C ain't cutting it. But love her anyway. Okay. Student variables. This is where I get to the slide and I say, you don't need me talking about this. But it helps. Things that I remember and that you have to remember. Everybody has a different aptitude, a different learning style. I know they spend a lot of time talking about you got to figure out your learning style. All I'll say on that is be willing to change like your thought process of how you're, or change the way that you're doing things to pick up info, especially for those who've had a lot of college. Because sometimes what worked doesn't always work here because of the pace. It's much faster than regular college. Motivation, you know, what brought you here? Never forget that. Write it on your mirror. I did it when I was here. Take a piece of paper, write on your mirror. You know, they say write down your goals. I didn't always do that, but one thing that I did when I was here is I wrote it on my mirror. I had it on my rearview mirror. I don't recommend that one because it blocks your view, but I had it on both. And it just said, I will finish or graduate whatever phase 1. And then there's phase 2. Phase 2 is fun though. And it's just something to remind me. I had another one on my computer that, you know, was a note to myself to remember the day that I got accepted. And that feeling. You're going to lose that a little bit here. First 2 weeks, honeymoon period. That's what I call it. I don't know what everybody else calls it. They steal my lines all of a sudden all the time. But I call it the honeymoon period because if you're like me, I had so much red tape to get here, 9/11 happened and all this stuff, and I was an alternate once. And when I finally got here to this desk and sitting where you're at, we were downstairs, of course, back then, is I knew, like a lot of y'all should, and probably thinking, nothing. I'm here, and I will be a PA. I mean, I was locked in. There's nothing that could take me out of this course. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't say this to worry you, I say this to empathize and sympathize at the same time with you, is I thought all that. And then about a week and a half, 2 weeks in, we took our first test, which back then was inorganic chemistry. We all had some inorganic chemistry. And I listened to the whole lecture. It was great. Like I'm tracking, I'm on, and I was studying like I did in school. And I got sat down and take the test, and it was on paper back then, little bubble sheets and stuff. And I literally, this is not, it's funny, but it's not a joke. I really had this whole thought process in my head. I read the first one, you know the rule. Oh, the first one's always tough. If you can't figure that one out, go to the second one, or go to the bottom or something. I'm like, I don't know that. What is that? And I looked at the second one, I'm like, I don't know that either. I don't even know what he's talking about. I went to the third one, on the third one, because you'll find I'm kind of sarcastic, and some people don't like sarcasm. I love sarcasm, especially if it's funny. Don't use it to make fun of people or be rude. Right? But if it's funny. Anyway, I looked at the third one, and I literally was about to raise my hand, because we all get here and we've been around. I almost raised my hand and went, if you'll tell me what language this is in, I might do a lot better. I made the average on that test, and it was a 56. Never failed another test in PA school after that because it kicked my butt into going, just like a lot of y'all, when you take a hit, you don't just collapse and say, I'm going home. You turn around and you start kicking butt, right? You figure it out, and you will. That's not gonna happen to y'all though. Okay. Chemistry is no longer the course that tries to take you out. Back then they were trying to take you out, I think. Okay, knowledge base, everybody's different. Study habits, everybody's different. Test taking ability, everybody's different. Some people are great test takers. Some people suck at it. Really. They'll figure that out, and then we'll figure that out. Figure it out and figure it out. My last line there is multitasking. I put that just to say, you know what you're doing, you're multitasking. You're doing 2 or 3 things badly at once. Focus on one thing, people. Know yourself, proceed accordingly. I love that line among other lines because only you know your background, only you know your study habits, only you know the day you walked through the door. I use a lot of analogies. And one of them I had to learn in PA school is to be confident every time I went into a test. And so I knew when I hit the door and walk in here on test day that I was confident that I had been to the cage and hit baseballs every day. I had done I was playing the championship game as test day, get the analogy? As I went to the cage every day, I worked hard to make sure that I was going to hit the ball, and now it's time to perform. So there's nothing else I could do when I walked through that door. I knew I would put in the effort. And if you put in the effort, that should give you some more confidence when you come into testing things. Rather than go, man, I didn't hit the cages at all this week. If you don't like sports, you don't like that analogy, I'm sure, but I don't have a better analogy because I love sports. So. Except soccer. Shouldn't even open with that. Nothing wrong with football and football, either one. I'm not big on objectives. We have objectives because that's what we got to do. That's the actual objective for this whole course. We're not going to read that one. We're going to read this one. Practical. And then I can sum this up into saying, I'm here to make sure that you get, there's a key word there, an extensive grounding in anatomy and physiology that you'll apply in your future courses, your future practice. Here's the point of anatomy here. We've had anatomy. And then we're going into anatomy. I want you to think about this. When you took anatomy the first time, some of y'all took it to get into PA school, but other people, like some of my kids who went to college, is they took anatomy, but they weren't really planning on doing, most of them, medical stuff. There are people who take anatomy for their courses like biomedical sciences. It probably won't be a PA or a nurse practitioner. And that anatomy course is not very in-depth, even though it felt like it then. This is a very in-depth anatomy course. But think about it, reasonably so, shouldn't it be? You're going to be treating people. You're going to have their lives in your hands, not to placate that, but it's true that you're going to be seeing patients now. And I would do you a disservice if I didn't get as much info on anatomy as I can that's going to help you in the future courses, because we're a foundation. And so knowing that I have been through this program and I worked as a PA 20 years or something, I kind of know what you need to know to get forward. And for some of you who've had anatomy for you, like, we know this isn't so important, but I know in ortho that particular topic is going to come back up. I'm going to include it, even though we don't spend a lot of time on it, right? And so you have to just stay with me that I'm trying to get you the info you need to get through the rest of the program and to be a good PA. Some of it, do we always use it as clinic? Maybe not. I already talked about that basic science versus important stuff. Y'all are free to ask questions anytime you want to. I like to skip formalities a lot. That whole raise your hand, stand up. I'm a civilian now. I retired from the Army. I'm a civilian. So if you have a question, you just raise your hand, and if I don't see you, go, hey. And anyway, there's no disrupting the lecture. It's supposed to be a discussion. So even when we get into some topics, now I know there's probably not a lot of questions, but this is how our testing will go. 7 exams, 50 questions on the exam. So we only get 50 questions. When you look at the breakdown, we're going to start just like the book does. And we walk ourselves through cells, intro to anatomy, then we do some cells, genetics, then we work into looking at integumentary, I'll break it down simple. We're going to do basic intro to anatomy topics to get us started on cells and all that. Then we're going to go into all the different types of tissue, like nervous tissue, muscle tissue. Then we'll get into neuro, brain, spinal cord, my favorite. Brain, spinal cord, cranial nerves, autonomic nervous system. And then on test 4, we're going to see that we have all of our special senses. Hearing, sight, vision, those are special senses. Difference between a general sense and a special sense. And then we kind of switch gears. So after we do the first 4 tests, then we'll transition into the last 3, which are all musculoskeletal. Head, neck, torso, upper extremity, lower extremity. And we will do this in what's called a regional approach. Okay, some people teach anatomy 1 and 2 together, where you learn all the physiology. When we do like upper extremity, a regional versus a systemic approach is regional says we're going to take the upper extremity and study everything in it. So we're going to study the muscles, the bones, the landmarks, the arteries that are in there, the veins that are in there, in that area. Rather than like a systemic approach would be, well, let's study the circulatory system like Dr. Walters is going to teach you later, is study every vessel in the body at once, that kind of thing. That's the difference between systemic and regional. So down the hill, with our medics that are down the hill, they teach from a systemic type of approach for a lot of them. All right, and then we'll take test 7, and y'all will be, it's a great class to be in, the 3rd class. You know why? Because you get a very long break in between this and the next semester because you have the Exodus time. So it works out good. You're not even thinking that far ahead, are you? And you're doing good. So you're thinking about today and tomorrow. That's it. So to be successful, PowerPoint slides. We hate to hear that word. I hate to hear that word when I walk into somewhere too. But we got to start somewhere. So I put that the PowerPoint slides are not intended as a complete reference, but a roadmap to coverage. The slides are available on Canvas. Anybody having problems with downloading? Block 1 slides should be up. Probably later today I will post blocks 2 through 7. So you'll have every slide for this whole course right up front. So you can print them out. I won't make changes during the class unless there's a mistake. And that happens. I'm not perfect. And then I'll put up additional study aids sometimes, like self-assessments or charts with cranial nerves, that kind of thing. I'll put them in. You'll see there's a block. It may be, you probably can't click on it now, but it says self-assessment and pictures. I'll post those after this test. I give you a self-assessment and a set of pictures. In anatomy, we use a lot of pictures, especially in musculoskeletal. But I try to use 90% of the pictures that you see on an exam come from the pictures that I give you. We have a lot of pictures in the slides we use over and over, but then I give you some study pictures that I want you to key in on, hit those, rather than try to pull out 200 photos, right? There's 20, 30 of them in there. Some of the pictures show up on the exam, some don't. You often wonder, well, why was that picture in there? Probably helped you answer something else. So I know that if you knew that picture, you'd get the question, that kind of thing. So that should help you on the pictures. I don't do a whole lot of point and see. Anatomy in community colleges and even four-year college, a lot of times it's what's this, what's this, what's this, what's this, right? I don't do a whole lot of that, and you'll see that as we go through. But when you get that self-assessment, it's not a, it's like 20 questions. It's a gauge. It's meant for you, in my mind, after you study, you go, let me do this little self-assessment. And you go through it, and it's meant for you to go, I don't remember reading that, or wow, it's not everything. I'm just telling you, if you were to just go, well, you know what, I'm just going to take the self-assessment, I got all of them right but one, I'm good for the test. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's not everything. It's just some snapshot pictures. It's like see how, it's like doing polling questions during my lectures. It's just a gauge of, okay, yeah, I kind of knew that, or wow, I didn't even think of it that way or about that. Okay, let's keep going. Oh no, I gotta say one thing. We have all these books that this info comes from. They don't give you the physical books anymore. Alright, some people like this, some people don't. But this is my guarantee to you. Every question that you see that I write will come directly from the slides. And we will talk about it. So I have, to myself, I say, we only get 50 questions out of all the material that we go through for this first test. And so if it's important enough to be on the test, it's important enough to have on your slides, it's important enough to have in your notes, and it's important enough to talk about in class. So you'll never get a question that's like in the book that we didn't really talk about in class at some point. I don't view that as fair. We gotta boil down somewhere, right? So if you never study anything but my slides, you'll be fine. Where you can fall in that, because you can memorize a lot of stuff, but there's an understanding point, and you're reading the slide trying to memorize it and you don't understand it, that's a good time to like open the book or ask me, right? Because sometimes I'm from East Texas, right? I don't know, I can't always reach 67, whatever, 65, 67 people at the same time. I may say it like you don't want to hear it, right? And so sometimes those people who are smarter than me wrote those books, and you read it in there and you go, why didn't you say it that way? Well, I'm from East Texas, and the way I said it is different. And I've been around a while, so I generally am able to talk to most people. All right, I'm getting to where the only person that you'll meet, Mr. Murray, has been around here forever, but you'll meet him later. But I'm getting to be one of those people that are like, he's been here too long. No. Those are your textbooks. If you don't ever pick up a textbook, great. Slides are where it's at. I'm trying to help you out. All right, learning tips, stay current, review slides. You hear all these in every class. Review notes. That. Here's what I would do, is you have tests that come up every Monday and Friday. Not every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You know, we had it a little different when I was here, but what I learned to do that worked for me is every day I would go home and I would spend about 15 minutes on each class that I wasn't about to take a test on. And what I would do during that 15 minutes, I learned to do, rather than go, I'm going to study anatomy, even though micro's next, I'm going to study anatomy. I didn't go in there and say, okay, I got to commit this memory, commit this memory. I was kind of tricking myself. Because what I learned to do is I'd take that 15 minutes and say, okay, here's anatomy. Okay, however you decide to study. All right, for 15 minutes, over the material we covered today, I'm going to do my note cards for that. And I always tell myself, but I'm not going to learn it, because I don't even know anatomy until next week, right? Until the next, I think I am the first test this time. No, Walter's is. A&P 2. So you would want to look, A&P 2 is your focus, but don't forget about the others. But you can't try to learn anatomy in depth tonight. You got to do a little bit of study. That way, when I got to the 48 hours that they tell you not to get to, but you're going to, when I got to 48 hours until the next test, which is the most important test in your life, right? I had my study materials already built. Does that make sense? That's what I used, like 15 minutes a night on each one. I didn't sit down and try to hammer, okay, I'm going to learn cranial nerves tonight, even though I need to be studying A&P 2. I don't know, maybe I'm going to build a chart on cranial nerves. Do you learn it when you build that chart, though? Yeah. So that's what worked for me. Okay. We're almost through with this. Class conduct. I'm real big on respect, right? I don't ever say anything up here on the podium or mess with you when you ask a question or something that's meant to like upset you. If it does, you need to come and tell me, because I'll never know. You know, I'll be on the calendar next to your computer in 10 years, and you're like Xing people off, and you're waiting to get me. When I never knew that I offended you in the first place. So if I say something, why do we have so many arguments in social media? The only reason people are so angry is because they can say it without being punched in the face, right? But in person, why do people get so disgruntled and think they don't like somebody? You know, if I think that, if you say something to me that I didn't, you know, that seems like it would upset me, I'm going to come and ask you, hey, what exactly were you trying to say? You know what I mean? Sometimes you say, everybody does it. You say something, you walk away from the conversation, you don't realize how you said it, upset that person because that's the way you talk. Then they never come and tell you. You need to say, hey, what did you mean? You got to clarify, what did you mean by that? What did you mean you don't like soccer? If I can go, I don't have a problem with soccer. I just didn't grow up playing soccer, right? or football. We call it soccer here. Okay, participate in all the lectures, great. I'm not in charge of you, your class leader, your class advisor. Who's y'all's class advisor?
Commander Christian.
So they're in control of your military bearing, your military activities, whether you're here in class or not. I sign, if you need to be out of class, I sign your forms. Other than that, I'm not here anymore to go, you're not in uniform, you're not doing this. You know, if I have to, I would. I did retire right from the Army. I know how to play the game. But other than that, I'm going to respect you and treat you, in my mind, like you're adults in graduate school. That's what you are. And so that's professional attitude. That's why I'm trying to keep it a little more relaxed rather than regimented. But don't keep your regimented if you need to be. You need somebody to help you get back to line, right? We're not doing Canvas at the moment, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's see. If you have questions, yeah, answer. Polling questions. I put polling questions in the lectures on my side. You don't see them on yours that you downloaded, but they're just like, have you ever been to a CME conference? And they have little clickers. We used to have the clickers, but of course they bought all these clickers, and then the next go around they didn't pay the contract on the software. And then I switched to doing it online. What is it, Socrates or something where you can do that? Everybody heard that? And I did that, and people could do it on their phone, and we could still have they could answer. And then people, they came to me, hey, your students are complaining because you're using up their data. I'm like, oh, sometimes you learn something like you don't have high-speed data. But nowadays, a lot of people do, but not everybody does. So I couldn't do that anymore. So now they're just there. We'll just kind of throw them out there and answer them. Right? But it's, I was going to say, it's like a CME, where every so often they'll put something that they just covered and see if you know the answer in your mind. It's not like we're going to do a show of hands or anything, it's just there. Testing. Be on time. If not, let somebody know. It's not like the old school days where if you didn't get here on time, you weren't testing, you took a 0. Nobody believes you when you say that. When I was here after 9/11, this base used to be wide open. And so you could come and go. Civilians could come and go. 9/11 happened, they shut all the gates and locked it up. I lived on Randolph when I was in PA school. And you believe it or not, but this is a fact, if you left Randolph and you got to Fort Sam and you didn't have your ID card, and your test is we used to test at 7, so if you weren't, it's 6:50. There's no way you're getting back to Randolph. You don't have your ID card. They're not letting you on for sure at that time. You might be able to talk your way on. Don't run the gate like a major did here a couple years. What he thought he was doing. Anyway, you weren't getting on the base. And guess what you were getting on the exam? You're pulling a 0, whether that took you out of the program or not. And I'm not saying that to make it sound like it was both ways uphill in the snow for us, right? But that was unreasonable, you know. And it gave me what I call functional OCD. Meaning, I don't care if your doorknobs are clean. I'm not worried about all these germs. But when I leave home, even now from Bernie, I live out in Bernie, I check probably 2 or 3 times. And actually now I just stick it in the edge of my wallet so I can look down and see that I got my ID card. I still do that to this day. So I wasn't going to show up here and get a 0. So just let somebody know though. Now if you're late, still come in, you can get the exam going. We have plenty of time. If something happens and it was justifiable, me and you or your proctor, you'll just get to take the exam at a later time. Alright, so don't freak out when you have that flat. Just get here, calm down, and we'll get started, right? Or we'll do it after. Which is a better way to do things. Much better way. I'm not going over every bit of this because they already gave you the testing policy. You're not supposed to ask questions during the exam. Me and Dr. Walters will field limited questions during it if needed to try and help you, right? We're trying to help you learn to be good PA students, and so we believe that allowing you to ask that. It doesn't mean 67 questions every 5 minutes, right? But it's, if you're having some trouble other than computer stuff, we'll come over there. So it's in bold because the school likes to see that, but we'll give and take a little more. They went through all the testing policies. I'm not going to say it now because Walters will remind you on the day of testing. The last thing though, get away from the door when you leave. Remember back to respect? You don't realize how loud it is because you're going to hit the door and go, what did you put on number 3? and you're gonna say, well, I put the right answer, which was the first one. There's no A, B, C, D on canvas. But we'll just say, hey, I put A, and I know it's right. And the next guy next to me went, oh yeah, you're an idiot, because that wasn't the answer. And it gets really loud out there, right? Just move away from the doors where people are testing, because the people that are still in here test slower than you, and they can hear you. And it's a distraction to them, right? So try to get away from the doors. All right, if you want to sit down with me, you best to email me and we'll set up a time. I come and go from my office a lot. Sometimes I'm teaching from home, sometimes I'm down the hill. Most of what I teach is here, so I'm around here. But if I don't know you're looking for me, you'll be stopping by. My room is straight out this door to the right. You know the stairs that are here to the right of this are left for y'all? And then there's another double set of doors, which is where the physical therapy students are. And then there's a single door over there. That's room 3107. And it's a big cadaver lab in there. You just come in, me and Dr. Walters both have offices in there. Okay? You're going to come in. There's nobody in there when you open the door. Just yell, hey, in there? We'll be there. And then once again, use that email. I'll help you out. Don't call that phone number. I don't even know if it's on. It's in my office, but I've never heard it ring. So. All right, any questions? Doing all right so far. So the next thing we do is we actually jump right into an intro into anatomy to kind of, I got to ramp you up very quickly to get up to where we're going. So we're going to cover some basic anatomy concepts in the first lecture, and that'll be it for today. Before that, I know it's not break time, but why don't we take 10 now and then we'll start that. Good break.